StudyCat.
Thank you everybody for signing in, whether it's morning or afternoon. My name is Jake Whidden. I'm based here in Shanghai, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. Hi, Angelina. And this session is on creating minds on learning. It's for parents and teachers, and it's all about trying to understand more about the science of learning. Hi, Katerina. Hi, Paul Granger. I won't keep saying hello. I'll end up saying hello to everybody. So let's start by playing a game. I want to play a game with you all. Before I set up this session, I want to play a quick 50-second video. It's a game on an app. And when you watch the video, I want you to think about these questions, okay? So think about these questions. Is the activity engaging? Does the student need to do much thinking? Does the challenge level increase? Is it active or passive? And is there any feedback? Don't think too much now. Don't have to think too much now, but just have a quick look, and then we'll have a quick talk about that before we do the rest of the activities. So here we go. Tell me, Paul Granger, what can you see on the screen? What can people see on the screen? Just to make sure I've got the right thing up. Nothing yet? Okay, 5, 4. We must have about yes, colors and animals, great. So I'm going to press play. It's just 50 seconds. It's just 50 seconds, and look at this game and think about, is it challenging? Is it active? Does it give feedback?
Purple, black, purple,
Purple.
brown, black, brown,
Brown.
black,
Black.
Keep watching.
green, yellow, orange, red, green, orange, green,
Green.
red, orange, yellow,
Yellow.
red, orange, red, orange, orange,
Orange.
red,
Red.
And now just watch the last part.
black,
Purple,
orange,
brown, red.
yellow, orange,
Orange.
red, orange,
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Was it challenging in any way? How was it challenging? Yeah. For kids, for sure. This is very focused on kids. Yeah, it's just a simple memory test, but it's more than just a memory test. What things were in here to make it more challenging or more active? Yeah, remember the place, yeah? And if you noticed, the buckets keep moving, right? So the buckets were here, then they move. So just enough to keep moving to make it a little bit more difficult. Yeah, memory and movement. Yeah, that's what they need to do. So all they had to do was click the buckets. I recorded this from an app called Fun English, and they just click the buckets, and they have to try and remember one is which. I want to come back to this game later once we look at the science of learning. But good answers so far. And Paul, can you please tell me what's on the screen now? I don't know how much delay we have today. Yes, what are we doing today? So I just wanted to show you that game. We'll come back to another game later, but I want you to think about, how does a simple game like a memory game actually use the science of learning for learning? So today we're going to do 4 things. We're going to do an outline of the science of learning, very brief overview. We're going to look at minds on learning. How do we get our minds to focus in on learning? We're going to look at an app for home and classrooms. And at the end, we can ask some questions. So first, a little bit of history. A lot of you will remember when you were at school that teaching was very teacher-centered. So even when I first started teaching 17 years ago, I went and I saw a lot of classes that were very teacher-centered. Hi, Sherman. Good to see you there from Turkey, if I remember. A lot in the old days, we used to talk about teacher-centered education. Lots of lectures, lots of tests, lots of repeat after me, like apple, 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 apple. A little bit of focus on video, just staring at a video, and very large classes. So this is very teacher-centered. But we realized very quickly in the 80s and 90s and later 2000s that we needed to move to student-centered, right? So student-centered education is probably what most of you are doing today and what I have done in most of my teaching, which is lots of game-based dialogues, pair work, working with your pair, working with your partner, lots of peer learning, maybe smaller classes, and a big focus on student talk time, letting the students become the center of the classroom. Now, that was a very interesting and positive change in teaching, and especially in language learning and language teaching. But we've seen a nice big shift in the last 5 to 10 years into something called, can anyone guess? I'll tell you anyway, learning-centered. And learning-centered is a bit different than student-centered. Student-centered it meant that a lot of teachers thought we need to let the students do everything. But what we realize today is we should be talking about learning-centered classrooms. And that's where you started to hear things like 21st century skills, learner autonomy, critical thinking. If you know visible learning from John Hattie, the idea that kids take their learning and put it up all around so you see the learning. It's about the learning that is important, not just the student or the teacher. Lots of project work. And also this idea of the flipped model, where the flipped model is you learn at home, you do something on your own, and then you come to class and talk about it. We also saw a big change in correction from the teacher correcting everything to the students learning to correct themselves. And then a lot of ed tech coming because it encourages that learner autonomy. So a lot of what we're going to talk today is about this, learning-centered education as opposed to student-centered education. So learning-centered education has had a big boost in the last 2 years. Why has it had a big boost? Can anybody tell me? Why has learning-centered, this idea of student learning on their own, the learning has to be central? What's the thing that's, yeah, thank you, Ty Foster. Thank you, Crystal Gung. Thank you, Kate. Yeah. So basically, with all the school closures, it meant a lot more home learning. And I think it became very obvious which schools had focused on learning-centered and which schools had focused on student-centered. Learning-centered schools meant that the kids had more learner autonomy, more critical thinking, and were more able to work on their own, even though that's student-centered, but they were more able to produce learning. So it meant that parents and kids and teachers had to understand learning, how to learn on their own. And another big thing, cognitive sciences and neuroscience have taken a big step into working with other groups of people. Cognitive science now works with education, neuroscientists working in education more than ever before. We used to see a separation. It was called the siloization of these two discourses and education. But now we're seeing them come together. And these two are all about cognitive science and neuroscience is how does learning actually happen? And the research is quite new. Hi, hello from Pakistan. The idea is that we're just thinking about how do we provide the best opportunities for learning, not necessarily the best environment or anything, but how do we provide the best opportunities for learning, which all other things will come around. So I'm going to show you some of the research from these three. These three are probably my heroes when it comes to learning and understanding learning. We have over here Dr. Stanislas I think it's pronounced Dahan. He's from France. He's the head of the cognitive psychology at Collège de France. And his book, How We Learn, is amazing. It came out in September 2020. I highly recommend it. It's a pretty digestible book to read, and he's really good at focusing on the aspects of the science of learning. We have Kathy Hirsch-Pasek. She's all about child psychology and understanding that if you let kids play and learn, and the natural way that kids learn, And then the last one we'll have a look at today is Andrew Huberman. Dr. Huberman's from Stanford University and really the leader at the moment in neuroscience. He looks at more than learning. He looks at mental health, and he looks at mind, body. He looks at how circadian rhythms and things, but really he's at the forefront of looking at how the brain actually learns. And with his research, it's from this year, 2021. So let's have a look at it. Here we go. If you haven't been in this session before, get ready. I'm going to put 4 words on the screen, and these 4 words, have a guess what they are. So have a look first. Don't type yet. Just have a look. Don't type. And now we're going to try. What do you think this one is? What do you think this one is? Ooh, active environment, achievement. I'm not going to tell you. Active engagement. Okay, good, pretty good. I'm not going to tell you yet. Okay, next one. What do you think this one is? What's this one? Ooh, Ty Foster, good job. Nice, Rosemary. Okay, next one. This one's a bit easier, right? This one's a bit easier. Yeah, very good. Just 1 second, everybody. You need to go out. Sorry. Thanks. And the last one is, sorry, my daughter came in and I told her she needs to just wait outside. And the last one is this one. Yeah, very good, Peter. Very good. Okay, so this is great. You guys already know all of these. But let's talk about what these actually mean. So when we talk about active engagement is all about ensuring that kids are maximizing interactions and learning opportunities. And when I put up some activities later, you'll realize that you've got to think, how often is this child interacting in this activity? This is really about kids, but it's the same with adults. How often are you interacting in the learning opportunity? That's number one. We'll look deeper at this. Focused attention is all about 2 things. One, it's reducing distractions. It's reducing all the other things that are happening around you. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to get people with no music or no sounds or anything, but it's reducing all the other things that are influencing that learning. And it's about how do you keep kids on task? And you will see that the best way to keep kids on a task is to keep on increasing their challenge. So you'll start to see how these work together. If you want to focus attention of a child, you need to make sure that language input, when we're talking about language learning, is scaffolded, as you all already know, but this is how you keep them moving forward. And the best way is if they make a mistake. The brain focuses attention when it makes a mistake. So if you are just letting your students do the same thing over and over again, that's good for memory and repetition, but you need to increase challenge to allow them to focus their attention. This is how the brain works. It wants to find mistakes, so it can focus in on that mistake. And then it will try, and then it will increase, and it sort of goes around in circles. Last one is continuous feedback. This idea that in a lot of learning, a child does a test, they hand it to the teacher, and then they get the feedback 2 days later or a couple of days later. And the child's sort of forgotten what they were doing on that day. They made a mistake, and then they've got to go back and think about it. A lot of the research now is saying we need to be able to give constant real-time feedback on the learning, so that because that's how the brain works. Because when you make a mistake, if you know you made it, that's giving you the feedback, which leads back to your attention, which then gets you trying again, and then you keep getting this loop of learning happening. So you want to be giving kids and parents information on how well they're learning. And it's very hard to do on a test, on a paper-based course. You can start to do that better with technology, which we'll talk about. I just wanted to go back to this page, sorry. When we had a look at that game we did with the buckets, if you think about the game with the buckets, the active engagement was the buckets are popping up and you have to touch. So that's an interaction. That's something you have to do, not just stare at it. You've got to do something. The focused attention is driving your attention to where the bucket pops up. I need to see, is it red or yellow? And I've got to focus in on that. If I get it wrong, hey, Mark Yellen, if I get it wrong, then, sorry, the increasing challenge was coming from moving the buckets around and adding more buckets. So it keeps getting harder for the kids. Then they want to do better. And the feedback is coming by, if they get it wrong, it says, you know you got it wrong in real time. So it's that's just to show you that even in that simple bucket game, that matching game where the cat was popping up, it does follow these sort of science of learning ideals. All right. So this is time for you guys now. I want to talk about passive and active. So what Kathy Hirsch-Pasek calls it is minds off and minds on. So it's often called passive and active. Passive learning meaning you're not really doing anything. You're just staring at something, right? Like you're watching a video, but you're not having to interact with it. What she says is she likes to use the term that if you're just watching something, it's quite minds off. The mind's not having to do anything. But if you have something to do while you're watching the video, the mind is on, right? So it has to be focused. So I'm going to give you some classroom activities. And all I want you to do is just type on or off. It's obviously on a scale, okay? But if you think about your classrooms, and parents, if there's any parents here, you think about when you were young and you were watching a lecture, is this an minds on or minds off? Yeah, I think it's off. What about drawing a new word? Yeah, nice. So we're in agreement for these two. I put the two easy ones at the top. What about task-based learning, TBL, task-based learning? Okay. What about peer teaching? Nice, everybody. Okay, here's a controversial one. Yeah, on or on, right? That's good, Paul. What about using a video? Nice, Morag. Taking notes? Okay, I like this one. This one's controversial. Flashcard drills. You know, the old classic where you hold up a flashcard and just say red, orange, yellow, red. Yeah. What content language integrated learning might be on or off. Now, here's one I want to know. Just tapping on a tablet. Is that on or off? Might be on a scale, off and on. You put off, on, off, off, off. Interesting. Now, doing a puzzle and a gap fill. Oh, this is an interesting one. What do you guys think about a gap fill? The classic gap fill. Yeah, good point, Amir. Good point. So, Amir just made the best point. What is a gap fill? Oh, Dan Brannigan, who's a parent. So a gap fill is when you have a sentence and one of the words is missing. But let me go to the next slide and we'll explain a little bit more. This is just my opinion. This is just what I think, okay? I think watching a lecture at university, at the back of a lecture hall, is pretty passive. You're not really engaged in doing anything. I think using a video can be both. It could be very passive and you're not doing anything. It can be very active, and I'll show you an example. I think kids in a classroom doing flashcard drills is not very minds-on. It's quite passive. Tapping on a tablet can be both. I think if you are just doing this, yellow, yellow, and just tapping on one word, like it's yellow, it's yellow, it's yellow, it's yellow, or that's quite passive. That's not engaging your mind. But if you have to choose between 3 different things, which we'll show you, that might be more minds-on. So it could be both. The ones I love is this one, drawing new words. There's a lot of research saying that if a child, well, I'll show you that research in a minute, okay? So this is just where I put them. It's up to you. As Amir said, it depends on how you do it. The reason I'm showing you is just to get you to think about, when I'm going to do this activity, how much minds-on activity is there? Do they have to do much? Or is it just watch me as a teacher? And then you start to tweak what you're doing in class. But let's look at what the research says, because I could talk all day, but I could tell you my opinions, but let's look at some real research and then we'll look at some activities. So Stanislas Dehaene says, I put his name up here, Dehaene. He says the guiding principle of learning could not be clearer. A passive organism does not learn. And I think that and later I'll explain, a passive organism doesn't mean you can be learning by doing nothing. It's just when you're not, it's just if you're just staring at something, he means, right? He means that active engagement needs to be promoted. You need to be focused in on something. Now, if everyone's thinking about meditation is quite active because you're focusing in on thinking about nothing, right? It actually takes mind power to think about nothing. He's not saying things like that. He's saying that if you're just staring at something with no real meaning or no real process, you're not really learning. He also says that the teacher can achieve engagement only if the child or learner engages themselves. So you need to have something that's motivating to get the child to be wanted to be engaged. And lastly, he says making learning conditions, I love this, making learning conditions more difficult, well, reasonably more difficult, will paradoxically lead to increased engagement and cognitive effort, which then improves intention, which then leads to more learning. So I think a lot of people remember the old zone of proximal development, or I+1. A lot of the research now is starting to show how the brain actually does that children like to be challenged at that extra point because it helps them focus more. This is one of my favorite ones. I won't read it to you. You guys can read it, but I'll just explain it. If a child is given blocks, so if the teacher stands at the front and says, it's red, it's a blue block, it's a red block, that if the children are allowed to pick it up and touch it and say, it's a red block, that when they remember the word later, there'll be more brain activity when they remember the word later, because they're remembering more parts of when they learnt it. If you're just looking at the teacher saying it, you're only remembering one thing. If you touched and felt it, you're remembering more about that word, which means that you're more likely to remember it. And when I finish, I'll send out all of the links to all the research. But this one's a very interesting one to watch. If you can manipulate an object, you're more likely to remember it. So when you're standing exactly, Paul, when you're standing at the front of class, if you have the opportunity for the children to be touching and feeling something, they're going to be more likely to remember it. And that's for parents as well. Not just staring at a picture in a book is good. Touching and feeling something is better. This is one of the classics. If you draw so if kids are doing a scientific project, you would think doing an experiment is very active, right? And it is. I have to actually touch and do something and manipulate things. But that's better than just watching an experiment. Doing the experiment is better. But drawing the chemical reactions after the experiment, students who drew outperformed those who only did the experiment. So once you finish the experiment, you go back and you have to recall what you did and try to draw the experiment or draw the chemical reaction or draw a picture of what you did. And simply by recalling that and drawing it, you're getting your brain to be more active and you're more likely to remember it. And that's called the drawing effect. And that's from this research on the evidence for reliable and robust memory benefits in free recall. So a lot of schools I see, they allow the kids to draw a picture or draw a word after they finish something. And that is great. So if you're a parent, let your child just draw the word, not just write the word. Writing the word is one thing, but having to think, what does this look like? Drawing the scene that you remember, you're more likely to, you'll do better on that learning. Videos. Okay, so I don't know if anyone knows who these two are. Can anyone tell me who Bergman and Sams are? Two of my heroes. If anyone can remember who Bergman and Sams are, you get 10 points and an extra thing from Paul. Yeah, Morag. I knew Morag would know this. McIntosh from Scotland, because Bergman and Sams were the first people to really coin the term flipped classroom. And what they would do is send out videos to their students. But what they really emphasize is you're not just sending a video. You need to teach the students how to watch the video. You need to teach them to stop, start, rewind, and repeat. You've got to show them how to do that. And then you've got to give them tasks that encourage stopping, starting, rewinding, and repeating. So you might give them a video and say, watch this song, but find 5 colors in the song. Or watch this song and find 6 animals. Or watch this song and tell me 3 things you don't like or 3 things you do like. But by doing that, yeah, I mean, John, that's a great one. If you could have them with embedded questions, stopping and starting, but that's a difference. That's very teacher-centered. If you embed the question in the video, it's very technology-centered then, right? I love it when you let the child, if the question is open enough that the student has to stop, start, and manipulate it themselves. They've got to go back, look for it, pause it, and they are manipulating the content. So then they're more likely to be actively engaged in the content and they'll be more focused on the content. But John, I think it's definitely better than just watching a video, right? Great point, John. Okay, so that's video, right? So if you're sending out videos to your kids or to your students, make sure that they have a task attached to them. And I know it sounds crazy, but teach them how to stop and start. So if you're in class, model that behavior for them. Show them how to stop videos and start videos. Okay. And also speed up videos and slow down videos. That's a really good one. Show them how to do half speed and fast speed, because then they can start to, maybe watch the video again fast or slow. Okay. Here's a little test for you all. Get ready to type. Have a look here. So it says cat and... Good. Hair and... Yeah, perfect. I know this is really easy, okay? What about this one? Something and something. Yeah, zebra and horse. Perfect, John Burke. Thank you. And then the last one, a bonobo and perfect. Okay, so you all got these because you're adults and you should know these words. But I really love this research. This research says... That's the words that we just did. But I love this research. It says, if adults are presented with a word pair in which one of the words has a few missing letters and are asked to generate the full word, they will remember the pair better than if they just passively read it. Now, I know we all do this in our classes, and this is actually from 1988. But now science of learning. Oh, a bonobo is one of the family members of is a primate related to chimpanzees, but it's not a chimpanzee. But what is so fascinating about this is it's because when you have the missing letters, your brain focuses in, it's actively engaged, it's a little bit of a challenge, and you have to think about what that might be. So then you've done more activity, you're more likely to remember it. So I love how this old research is now being sort of informed by the science of learning, saying just by removing a few letters, you're more likely to remember, which is what we did at the beginning, if you remember. Oh, I've got 2 more to show you, and then we'll do some activities, okay? I absolutely love this new research. Now, this research is from June 2021. It's really new research. It's been replicated, and it's been published in many journals, and it's quite amazing. So imagine it's the power of rest. Okay, imagine this research came from piano playing. So they would test people playing a piano, and they would have them what do you call it? They'd have them linked up to. They would have their brains linked up, right? And they would be playing a piano. Now, while they were playing the piano, the brain was active, and they could see that it was focusing on its motor skills, and it was focusing on some of the musical parts. I don't mean not that there is musical parts, but there are motor skills parts, and they saw how active the brain was. Then they would tell the people playing the piano, you can have a 10 to 20 second rest break, and you do nothing. Just sit here and relax. And they would still be measuring the activity in the brain. The brains were 20 times more active when they were resting than when they were playing the piano. 20 times more active when they were resting than when they were playing. And they think it's because when you stop, you're giving the brain a chance to remember what it's been doing. So while it's playing the piano, the brain is focusing on reading the notes, playing the piano, listening. But when you relax, the brain says, okay, I've got some break time now. I'm going to start remembering. And I'm going to take all this opportunity to start remembering everything that I just did. And they've done this many, many, many times now. And they're seeing that these 10 to 20 second periods of rest, of doing nothing, increase brain activity by 20 times. So what does this mean for us in classes? It means asking our students, and as parents, asking our kids to just stop, take a deep breath, relax for 10 seconds, and then go back to learning again. It's allowing the brain, Paul, that's a good, it allows the brain to just start processing its memories. We also know that these little short naps, 20-minute naps, allow the brain to start processing memories. And by doing that, you're giving it more chance to process information. There's a lot of research that says if you study for a test today and you take the test today, you will not do as well as if you had a sleep overnight and then took the test the next morning. So if you sleep and then you take the test the next morning, you'll do better. Because when we're asleep, our brain is active. It's processing information. It's the time of the day where you get your brain to actually get to focus on something because it's not doing all the other tasks. So just try this out in class and see what happens. It's very new research, but I think it's fascinating. I'll just read this out to you, but it comes from the consolidation of human skill linked to waking hippocampal-neocortical replay. So basically they're saying the consolidation of a skill is superior when frequent rest periods are interspersed with practice blocks. So you might have heard this before. It's called distributed practice. It's this idea of spaced repetition. It's an idea of, of distributed practice, the idea of separating a little bit of time. So doing some practice, little tiny break, doing some more practice. And that when people do that, they learn better. So, you know, I know a lot of, especially in China, there's a lot of focus on just keep going, write more things. But when your child is asking, if you're a parent, can I have a little break? Yeah, just let them have a 20-second break. Okay, just stop for a second, put your pen down, and then we'll go back and start learning. This is really new stuff, but there's some links here in science journals that are worth having a look at. If you're interested in this, I guarantee you will hear more about this in other learning places as well. So what can you be doing in your classrooms and at home? Well, you can be doing a lot. Let's have a look. This is one of my favorites. What do you see on the screen? Yeah, good. Thank you. 2 balls. You see a white ball and a yellow ball. Now, this is a really interesting small change you can make to your teaching that will help with M&M chocolate. That's pretty funny. No, they're just balls. A white ball and a yellow ball, okay? A white ball and a yellow ball. And I've made a little face. But a lot of what we do in class is we'll hold up something and say, it's a white ball. And then we hold up the yellow ball and they say, it's a yellow ball, right? But another really simple way to do this is you hold up a ball. It doesn't have to be a ball. It could be anything, right? But you hold up a ball and you say, look, a ball. And the kids all say, a ball. And then you hold up something else that's not a yellow ball. You hold up just a yellow square. And you get them to think about, what is this if these are plus together? And then the kids start to work it out. So what is this? You can type it. Yeah, very good, Dia. Very good, Saeed. Or Saeed, yeah. So this is the idea of taking 2 novel labels and joining them together. Do you notice that it's just slightly more active learning? It's slightly more focusing, slightly more challenging. But just by doing that, the research says that you're more likely to remember now, oh, that's a yellow ball, as opposed to just giving them white ball and yellow ball. So if you have a look here, then we can just introduce new labels. Red ball, right? A red ball. But I've got to take it from the color over here and the ball here and put it together, rather than you giving it to me. Let the learning happen. It's an opportunity for learning. And then again, a red ball, a blue ball. But you see what they have to do there. They have to actively think about that. Now, that's very, very simple. Yeah, it could be anything, right? It could be on a palette. But, I mean, it could be for anything that you have an adjective and a noun together. Anything, really. It's just getting them to pull it. Then you could just have all 3 on the screen and say, you tell me one. You choose which one you want to do. They'll be more focused as well. Okay, let's keep going. So this is a great one. This is when active learning benefits vocabulary learning. When 3-year-old children figured out the referent of a novel label through a process of elimination. They showed better retention of that label than children who were just explicitly and directly told the label. So Zosh is a really interesting researcher. She works with Kathy Hirsch-Pasek. Very interesting. So when they had to figure out that this was this plus this, as opposed to just here's a yellow ball, that they were more likely to remember it. So by making it a little bit harder, it's more likely to learn it, which I love. This was the one we said before, just drawing vocabulary. So I think if you're teaching, especially if you're teaching kids, but adults as well, just get them to spend 5 minutes at the end of class and say, draw every word you learned today. Even if your focus is on spelling or on writing, by drawing it, they're pulling from a part of their brain, actively learning, focusing in on it, challenging themselves to remember what they learned in that class today. Another really simple one, apparently if you bring in other senses, and I'm not talking about not talking about multiple types of learning. I'm just talking about other senses. So when you see this, I use this in all my webinars, this one, so you've probably seen it before, but most teachers will just ask, what can you see? Okay, I can see a gorilla, I can see an elephant, I can see a koala, but what can you hear? What can you hear? What can you hear? Now, I often ask this question to adults and they say, nothing, there's no sound. I say, yeah, but try to imagine what you can hear, right? You know, yeah, you can hear animal sounds, or I can hear, and you get your kids to start thinking about, the elephant is, leaves rustling, John Burke, exactly, in the wind. See, now you're starting to pull from other. This is much more active and focused than just saying, what can you see? And then you can say smelling. Oh, Peter, no, yes, you can probably smell a smelly poo as well, right? You can smell the elephants or smell the eucalyptus. But now you see where I'm going, right? You're getting the kids more focused in on the learning. I'm going to keep going. This is a great one. I'll just explain this one. Basically, you just draw up some pictures on the board and you let the kids look at it. And all they have to do is try and make a picture. And then they try to explain the picture in the language that you are teaching them in. So this is like, what could this be? What could this be? What could this be? But this is one that my daughter did. I do this at home with my daughter all the time. We do this nearly every week. She loves it. So she turned this into a cloud, and then this was it's a tree, but it's got lots of seats in the tree and a house, and there's a worm and a flower and a swimming pool. And then she can tell me a story about it. Because by doing this, you're actively engaging them in something as simple as a shape. And then they've got to challenge themselves to make a story about it. And then they're more likely to remember something from this story because they were engaged in it. It's such a simple activity, but it adds a lot of layers. This one's simple. I do this one in class a lot, but you can do this at home. So on one, if you have 2 kids, right, you need 2 kids or 4 kids or 10 kids, but you build something out of blocks. So you get your blocks and you build something and you put it on one side of the classroom and you say half the kids can see that and the other kids only have the blocks. And all they have to do is look at this block and they've got to run over to the other side of the classroom and say, put the yellow blocks on the bottom or whatever, however they do it. But they have to communicate with each other. But by doing this, again, it's active. You're getting them to think and communicate across the room. You're getting them to manipulate something. You're getting them to challenge because it's getting quite hard. How do I know how to do this? Very simple one, but very science of learning. What is minds on in this picture? Why is this picture very minds on learning? Yeah, John Burke. Good job, John Burke. Yeah, Morag, of course. So peer teaching is one of the keys to the science of learning because you got to focus in on remembering it, challenge yourself. You get it, right? We know where we're going with this. So subjects who learned in order to teach were more intrinsically motivated, had higher conceptual learning scores, were more actively engaged than kids who didn't do that. And even this one's quite old from our very famous friend at Harvard here, Mazur, and Deci is another very famous study about this way back in the 80s. Deci is all about motivation, but there's now saying that research is also showing, well, that's because that's the way the brain works. And then the last one is just a choice menu. Choice menus are classic because they allow if at the end of the class or at home, you say to your child, well, do you want to draw this? Or do you want to do a test? Or do you want to focus on it on your own? Do you want to make a video? But by giving them the choice, they get to focus their attention on it. They challenge themselves more because it's their choice and they're going to be more focused in on it. So that's just a simple one, but we all know that one. So let's have a quick look at another app. This is just the same, StudyCat. This is StudyCat taken from StudyCat for Schools or Fun English. StudyCat for Schools, just so you know, is a student app that kids can use. and all the information on their learning is reported to the teacher and parent in real time. So whatever they do in their app, it's reported to the teacher in real time. And it's also available on the IWB for in class. So you can, whatever they've been doing at home in a flipped model where they learn on their own, focused and challenged, they can then come to class and you can do the same things in class. But let me just show you. And if you remember, I'll just play you 2 games. And I just want you to think about these things. How active is it? How is it challenging them? How is it focusing their attention? So I'm going to play a video again for you. I'm going to do a simple one first. Very simple one to start. I'm sure it will come on the screen in a second. So this is another game from our Fun English app. This is a very simple animals game. Look, these apps have about 200 different games. I'm just showing you 2. But I just want to show you how app-based learning can really help with the science of learning. So this is a very simple one, and then I'll play a more difficult one.
Ow! A cat?
So it'll be on your iPad, don't forget. Okay? Oh, it's not
A
that
cat!
one.
A dog?
So in this game, all they have to do is try to work out which one of these is a dog. Is it number 1 or is it number 2? What do you think? Number 1 or number 2? Yeah, very well. It might be number 2. It might be number 1, right? So let's have a look. Let's find out.
A dog!
How it was
A
number 2.
monkey? A monkey!
And then we start to scaffold up, right?
Ow.
We get more
A monkey?
animals in here.
A monkey! A lion?
It's a bit slow, I think, everybody. But
A monkey! A lion? A lion! A cat?
But you get the idea. I won't keep going.
cat!
Yeah, but you get the idea. So the reason why I believe this is focused on science of learning is because the silhouettes are forcing the child, just adding that little bit of extra challenge is making them think, what does this outline look like? So they've got to focus in on it. Then they've got to listen, and then they've just got to tap it. So there's not much interactivity, but at least they're focusing on something. So let's go to another game now. I think that one was a bit slow. And let me just close this one. I'll just show you one more game to think about. And this is just if you're teaching animals. There's so many different things you can do. So let's look at this one and start to think, how does the challenge increase, and how interactive is it?
2 pigs.
A bear.
2 mice.
So in this game, you see, all that happens is they hear the plurals, 1 mouse or 2 mouse, and then the mice pop up.
A pig. A
I'm going to
mouse.
speed it up because
Bees. 3 dogs.
okay. So guys, later in the game, you'll see that it increases and has 5 holes now. So you've got to, first one, you're just looking at the word. Now you've got to guess, is it between 4 different animals? So you see the challenge keeps going up. They're getting feedback. If they get it right, they get points and stars. So they're getting that constant real-time feedback. I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. Or if they're wrong, you'll see.
3 dogs. 3 monkeys.
A dog.
3 pigs.
I
3
just sped it
mice.
up for you.
3 pigs. 3 monkeys.
It's getting faster and faster. You've got to tap, 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 tap. It's very interactive, right? And then we go to the last level. We got to keep going, and the kids are keep on
2
being motivated
cats.
here, right? 2 cats. 1, 2.
3 mice. 2 birds. 3 pigs.
There.
3 pigs.
A monkey. A dog.
3 mice.
Nearly done,
3
guys.
bears. 3 cats. 2 birds.
And then at the end of the game, so you saw, sorry, in that game you saw that there was feedback coming from the score, but if they got it wrong, it told them straight away, you're wrong. And it just said, ding and gave them a negative 100. Oh, that's awesome, Ty. And what I love about that is it's exactly what the science of learning says. It says, focus your attention, keep increasing the challenge, keep getting feedback. And at the end of this game, they get feedback on what they learned. So you can see here, they go, oh, okay, I did really well with dog, monkey, and pig because I got green. But maybe I've got to remember tiger and lion better, right? So now we're handing over that learner autonomy. We're saying you need to be aware of your learning, and it's straight after the game, not later and later and later. So you can just see how integrating things like this,
A
or
dog,
quizzes,
a
or
monkey, a pig,
Kahoots
a bear.
helps.
Bear.
The reason why they're so popular is because they align to the science of learning. Because kids want to do this stuff, and it's not wasting their time. It's actually helping them learn. So that was that. We're nearly done, and I'm going to have to, let me just close this. Just going to wrap up very quickly. You've been also patient today and so interactive. I'm very happy. So what I always do is I kind of go through these questions every time. Is it engaging? Is there much thinking involved? Is it minds-on? Does the challenge get harder? Is it active or passive? And is there any feedback? So here we are. Who can remember the 4 aspects of the science of learning? Oh, am I on mute? No? I think other people can hear me. Sorry, Quinn. Maybe it's yours. But who can remember them? Number 1. Who can remember all of them? Type in the ones you remember. Oh, look at John Burke. You can just copy and paste John Burke. Active engagement, very good. Focused attention, increasing challenge, and continuous feedback. See, and this is just, I'm trying to use, by just removing those letters, it forces you to think about what these words are. So great job, everybody. This is what minds-on learning are. I'm really impressed how fast everybody was. Don't worry if you weren't super fast, because I'm going to send this out to you. And if you need to look at it longer, or you can share it with your friends, I'll send it out. If anybody wants, this is important, if anybody wants full access to Fun English, you can email Paul Granger. You can email Paul Granger at paul@StudyCat.com, and he will send you a code. This is Paul. He will send you a code, and you will have free access for 2 weeks, and we usually don't do that. Yes, Dennis, I will send all the slides out by tomorrow morning. Tonight I have to go to a parent-teacher meeting, which is very interesting. And lucky last, after this, we, our colleague and Mr. David Weller, StudyCat extraordinaire, one of, a very influential person in the ELT world, he'll be on Facebook Live after this. And if you have any questions, you want to ask further things, if you want more information, the link is here. You just go to StudyCat events, and if you can join the group. He'll be on Facebook Live answering questions. I can't be there because I need to go to a parent-teacher meeting with my daughter. No? Okay. And you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And have a wonderful day. And remember to go see Dave at Facebook Live. Always good to see you, Morag. Excellent, Dave here. Who is Jake Wynn? Good to see you, Kate. Good to see. Oh, who is Chong Jui Chong? Good to see you. Thank you. Yes, we recorded, and I and I will send it out to you all after. We'll just edit it a bit. Thanks, Honey. And don't forget to email Paul. Don't forget to join the Facebook group. Once again, here's Paul, a handsome man with bald head. And here's Dave, another handsome man. We have a theme here. You have to have very short hair at StudyCat if you want to work here. Thanks, Brian. Really good to see you all. I need to get running, so I'm actually going to close off the event. Peace from Shanghai. As I always say, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And stay tuned for the next session coming up soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
StudyCat!